Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. This is part 2 to my project breakdown of my latest track, Carrera. And in today's video, I'm going to cover the snare buildup and the technique that I use to make it a little bit more funky and a little bit more exciting during the 7 bars that build up before the drop. So the 8 bars before the drop, in particular the 7 bars. So if you haven't checked out already, I made a video, the part 1, where I'm just talking about the bass and how you can use tips to really make the bass more impactful, make the drop more impactful from a theory perspective, from a philosophical perspective. So check that out. So let's jump right in. The build up here, if you guys haven't heard the track already, let me just play this build up until a little bit of the drop. Cool, now you guys have an idea of what's going on. So I'm going to open up the important pattern, which is this pattern called build up. And I want you guys to really focus on what's going on with the velocity. So I'm just using a snare drum. I adjusted the volume a little bit, just a Vengeance sample. A little bit reduced the volume. I didn't do cut self, and I'll explain why. Sometimes you'll want to use cut self. Sometimes you won't want to, because what you're doing with velocity and having a little bit of an extra tail sometimes makes it more natural or more acoustically pleasing. So let's hear this snare drum. So on the snare drum, I have an EQ, but I don't think it's really doing anything at all. I think I was deciding to do something, but I don't think it's doing anything. A lot of Vengeance samples are actually well EQ'd already. Don't make this idea that everything necessarily has to be EQ'd. And as Steve Duda did say, a lot of times we first have to go to volume before we go to EQ. EQ is not always the answer. It's good to EQ, but always also check out volume. There's more that you can remedy with volume. I'm just going to mute this. So Endless Smile is on this, and I'm going to make it detached. So I like to use Endless Smile because it works, it's effective, it's simple. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, guys. And I use Endless Smile on my snare to really make the bassline wetness that's like constant throughout the track, but then also for it to evolve. So I'm using this medium preset. There's like the soft, I'm using this medium. It has a very harsh high pass. Let's go ahead and just see what Endless Smile is doing here. So Endless Smile, I do have this muted, is just at that constant. And then as we approach the end, I just kind of turn it up because this medium no limit has a harsh high pass filter. So let's play this back without Endless Smile. So the Endless Smile is nice because we get that little bit of the low end frequencies are tamed because this does add like a high pass filter. On its own, it can be a little jarring, but the reason why we do this is that be careful with your build-up snare that it doesn't have too much power, too much low-end frequency. Otherwise, it will take away from the drop that's coming up. You still want it to have power, but not overwhelmingly loud and overwhelmingly boomy compared to what you have in the drop. So this was a nice tip that I would recommend on your snare, your build-up snare, to use Endless Smile. Experiment with the medium, experiment with the soft. Play around with it, use like a constant volume throughout the constant value throughout it, and then like do your build up however, like as it's building up a few bars up until the drop, you know, then you can automate it however you'd like. I just wanted to have like a sizzle, breakaway, fade away sizzle before it got to the 4 bars before the drop. Now let's talk about this important thing, which is the last thing I want to talk about, but it is actually the most important, which is the velocity, guys. If I was to paint out these notes just all at 78% or all at 100%, it would just be way too robotic. It would just be like bam, 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 bam. Anytime a normal player is playing on a snare drum, when he's playing like dun 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 dun, right, the notes in between are gonna have lower velocity, higher velocity, and of course naturally they're gonna be placed out sometimes a bit to the right, a bit to the left. Now we don't need to worry about the little bit to the right or to the left. I'm just sticking still to a quantized kind of method here, but the key here is velocity, because velocity here is giving, when you play around with velocity, you can almost make it to the point where the pattern sounds like there's multiple snare drums, or it's almost like like an ensemble going on. Let's listen to just the snare pattern on itself, and I'll disable endless smile also. So we can just isolate this. So I have my key like snare drums that I would do. So like on every 1, 2, 3, 4, but in between that 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, I wanted that. So you don't need to necessarily use like sophisticated plugins. Just play around with velocity. And by not using cut self, you can let the tail go out, because if I use cut self, this will sound awkward. Check it out. If I use cut self, it's not super noticeable, but it kind of ends abruptly. And cut self is fine. I use that on my kick. I want to make sure things don't stack, they interrupt each other. But in this case, I want it to just play out, and particularly really nicely in these kind of rolls here. So what you guys could do is like, you could start a little bit lower and get higher as you come here, and notes in between adds a little bit of groove to your build up, so that the build up is more exciting than just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 right? It has a little bit more, and you can add a little bit more flavor in situations where you want to add maybe pitch, and you want the pitch to go up. I didn't do that here, and we just want to stick on velocity for the purpose of this video. So that's a really easy way, guys, that you can make an interesting snare buildup of 7 bars for your 8-bar buildup before your drop. The drop on this track is at like 30 seconds ish. And let me know what you guys think. Have you guys been playing around with velocity a lot? This is simple, guys. It's quick, it's easy. You can just play with velocity after finding your favorite snare drum. Make sure the volume's okay. And we're using endless smile here as like a lazy way, an effective way to add reverb to the snare drum, but also to high pass it however we like. You can get as aggressive with that as you like. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you guys know what to do. Hit that like button. If you guys aren't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you are alerted of my uploads. And I will see you guys in the next Shamshir Sound video. Take care.